Somehow, we have reached Thanksgiving week here on the ESPN College Football YouTube channel, and our Sunday recap shows have been entertaining all year. And Paul Finebaum, I am pretty certain that if I looked through the ether sphere of stuff that's been said, done, or what have you in college football, I could find two things. One, quit panicking after the first college football playoff rankings. Two, on the Saturdays where we least expect drama, chaos will always happen. And again, we saw that on Saturday.
Yeah, and the next to the last weekend of the year is always kind of weird, especially in the SEC where there are rarely good games. But sitting there yesterday morning, Matt, in Columbia, we were getting ready for our show, and Shane Beamer dropped by to do an interview. I'm like, what's he doing here? Does he have a game tonight? And you would thought he was a fan. He was just kind of hanging out and talking. And little did we know that 15 hours later, he was pulling one of the biggest upsets of the year. And I can't tell you that anybody saw it coming. And that's really one of the games that turned the CFP upside down, plus a couple of late field goals by critically important teams. And suddenly I'm scratching for schools to throw into the mix to try to make a case if we get any more carnage.
That's exactly right. So let's peel back. South Carolina, Tennessee, 63-38, the final out there in Columbia. We'll call that SEC Nation karma. A couple things. One, here's why this thing was not going to be on anyone's radar. All right. Number one, South Carolina had averaged, I think, just over 28 points a game. That's part one. Part two, Spencer Rattler had only thrown 8 touchdown passes all year, okay? All year. And in their 3 games against teams with winning records, I think they were averaging just over 12 points a game. And then yesterday, the over-under in that game, Paul, was 66. Carolina hung 63 by themselves.
Matt, we had in the middle of the show, we did a piece. Tebow talked to Rattler, and they came back, and everybody had their opinion. And I'm sitting there going, "Man, is this really the time to be cynical?" Because there's a lot of people there. This was kind of a game we didn't expect to be at. So I found some point of reference with Caleb Williams at Oklahoma, and thank goodness I didn't go all in because there was a temptation to, and good for him to. Finally rise up, have the game of his career on a very big stage.
Yeah.
And on the other side, there goes another Tennessee quarterback's Heisman hopes right down the drain. Hendon Hooker, got banged up. His team got wiped out, and his hopes of winning it are over.
Yeah. In full disclosure, we're taping this without getting a firm update on the status of Hendon Hooker's injury. The non-contact injuries always look bad. Hopefully it's not as bad as it looked. Milton came in, which is a nice option to have a backup if you're Josh Heupel. But if you look now at Tennessee, and I don't want to be negative, but I want to be realistic here. We have talked all season what a remarkable story this has been. I was even guilty at some point of calling Tennessee the 2019 LSU Tigers, where everything just was right in front of him to just a magic storm. Perfect storm, rather. I look now at Tennessee, and I think that Heupel walked into a really good spot, Paul, with this year's team. Now, this playoff's over this year. That didn't happen. Now you wonder where this Tennessee program goes based on a perfect storm that they were building with this year.
Yeah, Matt, if you forget 2 years ago, we've been down that road. But if you started the year off and said Tennessee goes 9-3, 10-2, I think most Tennessee fans would have been really happy. But in typical SEC fashion, especially for the Blue Bloods, and Tennessee is part of that crowd, or at least they have been. They just got a belly full of it, and that win over Alabama, on top of Florida. Remember, that was a game that they had to exercise some demons in, and they got ahead of them. But there was no reason, if you're a Tennessee fan, not to think you were going to be in good shape. I mean, South Carolina had just come off of a disastrous performance. But the thing that I admire about Shane Beamer, and he sat with me on Friday afternoon, and he's going through chapter and verse of the the motivational speech, and our guys, yeah, they played their butts off. It doesn't, and you know what? I'm like going, what is he selling me, or is this real? And it turned out to be real. That he sold his team on this dream, and the one thing that we really didn't talk enough about, that Tennessee's defense, especially the pass defense, was suspect all year long. We tried to build them up. Hey, they're gotten better, but Alabama, I mean, and Bryce Young had a field day against them. It was just a couple of really stupid decisions late in the game by offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien, and then conversely by the defensive side of the ball that cost Alabama that game. And I'm sure Alabama fans today are going like, how did we get here?
Right.
I mean, we should still be in the playoffs. I'm sure they're saying, and by the way, they're not going to be far from it.
Yeah, and so when you're building a program, you have to prove that you're better than that first record hit you put out when you released your first album, right? Everybody can be a one-hit wonder. How do you stack year 2, year 3, year 4? And that's what we always ID'd with Kirby Smart. Okay, he had the national championship game, Tua to Devontae Smith. All right, he was in that one. Can they come back and do it again? They built it back up to last year's national championship run. Okay, can they do it again? Well, now they're the number 1 ranked team in the country. And I'm kind of going there with Tennessee. Here they are, ranked 5th, had a chance to be in the college football playoff. Josh Heupel now has to prove, was this a 1-year, everything coming together, Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt, Tillman, everybody, or is the foundation built for Tennessee to have another record hit and come back again next year?
And Matt, the answer is unknown, and yeah, he's. I think it's going to become more difficult because that side of the division is getting better. Just ask Kentucky, and well, not a good example to use, but ask Kentucky and Florida, who have lost to Vanderbilt in consecutive weeks. Now that's a game that, I mean, there has been no more automatic win in America the last 3 years than Vanderbilt. Before that, it was Arkansas under Chad Morris, and here that game is now getting dicey, and I'm assuming Florida gets better. There hasn't been that many signs of it this year, but I'm assuming. So things are more difficult for Tennessee next year, and guess what? They go to Gainesville and Tuscaloosa, and that's a problem.
And then you mentioned, South Carolina, they're kind of an enigma. 1 week they look great. The next week they can't score points against Missouri. You can't figure them out.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.